Hi, and welcome to Hypothetically Intentional, where we ask the question, what if we set intentions with everything we do? I'm your host, Michelle Albers. Today I have Daryl Snow, returning guest. Thank you, Daryl, for being here.
Oh, you're more than welcome, Michelle. I love chatting with you all the time.
It's so good. So I'm going to set an intention before we drop in. And my intention is to have a deep, meaningful conversation with a good friend, which leads us right into kind of why we decided to record today.
Let's go. Deep and meaningful.
Deep and meaningful. I feel like you and I were talking, I don't know, a couple days ago, and we were just talking about friendships and the dynamics of that and what that might look like, and how I think you and I both mentioned friends that we've had. Like, I literally have a friend that I've known since I was 6 months old, but I maybe see her, I don't know, once or twice a year, if that sometimes. And every time we're together, there's no hard feelings. Nobody's feeling bad. We pick up right where we left off, and it's like no time has passed. She's just like one of those people that I can just, like, I don't, quote unquote, we don't worry about each other unless we worry about each other, you know?
Yeah, there's no scheduled appointment that, oh, we have to check in, but they're there no matter when you want them or need them. And yeah, I have a couple friends like that, but more often friendships seem to be like one-sided. You know what I mean?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Like we have work friends and then we leave that job and they're no longer friends, or at least we try to stay connected and they no longer reciprocate that connection. So to have those special friends that you can just, whether they be moments of, I don't know, I've only known them 2 months or I've known them 15 years, to have that type of relationship where you can just pick up the phone or drop in and call and go see. Those are rare and special. And it's one of the things I love about our friendship. We have a really great, deep connection that we don't talk probably every 2 months now, you know?
Yeah, kind of.
Um,
That's probably a good, that's kind of the rhythm we've fallen into right now. It goes in
yeah,
waves, which I find funny too, right? Like,
yeah. But there's no hard feelings or no, like, if you don't pick up the phone or don't return a text, I'm not like, well, dang, is she mad at me?
yeah,
No. She's
that's it.
she, she's the she's the busy woman who knows that we care about her, and she'll call when she can. And those are the
Yeah.
most important friendships. I have a classmate from 1970 something when I was in like grade school. And his mom, I live in Arizona, and his mom had moved down here. I didn't know that. And we hadn't talked in, I don't know, 35 years.
Oh my gosh.
And he called and he said, "Hey, my mom's because his mom and my mom used to be best friends." He's like, "Hey, I'm having to move my mom out from her home. I have a bunch of buddies who are going to come help me. It's a pretty big house. Would you mind coming and lending an extra hand?" And again, I hadn't talked to this guy in 35 years. And I'm like, sure. And they were out in a suburb called Gold Canyon, which is about 25 miles from me. So it wasn't like I just was going around the block. But I jumped over into my car at the time that I said I was going to be there. And I got there, and it was him and me.
Oh,
None
wow.
of his friends had showed up.
Mm.
And had I not kept my word to someone who was a friend 35 years ago, he would have been having to move the whole house himself. So it baffles me when people have, you know, my kind of friendship where 35 years later, yeah, I'll show up for you. We haven't talked in a whole time, and you say you have friends who are supposed to be there and no one's there. Like, I
I
don't
find that
understand.
fascinating. Do you think that I mean, because I always kind of go into the I wonder where that comes from, curiosity. Like, are they people who said yes but meant no and they're just afraid to say no? Or are they people who said yes and then something came up and they forgot to call? Are they people who, you know what I mean? I find it so fascinating. And I think the older I get, the more I really lean into I guess the concept of like quality time and meaningful connections, which to me then doesn't mean like there's no rules. You can call me at 3 a.m. Like I have boundaries. Like if you're calling me at 3 a.m. just to chit chat or you're, drunk and there's no purpose, whatever, that's a different thing. But if you're calling
Well,
me at
bail's a
3 a.m. because
purpose.
there's a crisis,
Yeah, bail's a purpose at 3 a.m.
yeah, but
A
I'm just,
purpose thing.
boundaries are different than like rules, so to speak. But I
Right.
don't have rules in my friendships. I just have meaningful connections that I really, I do need quality time, but it might be twice a year. I have my 6 month friend I've known since 6 months old. I have my friend I've known since first grade. Like both of them, I maybe see a handful of times a year. And the 6 months friend, it's interesting. I see her maybe once or twice. The first grade friend, I maybe see her quarterly, if we're
Yeah.
lucky. I don't
I'll go
know.
back to that example I used when we first opened the show. Like people make friends at work
Yeah.
and they hang out, they go to happy hour. Sometimes they'll go to each other's home. They'll do things socially. But then when the job ends, like that doesn't continue. And I wonder why. Like, why was the friendship good and thought solid while you're working every day, but once that's gone, it's not. And yet there's the connections that you just talked about. What do you think the difference is between the depth of the connection from those that are like what you just said and those what I just said?
Yeah, I wonder about that a little bit because I think some people um like work is a different boundary or a line for them. Like how deep are they willing to go? And like there's like work friends are only allowed into a certain level of comfort. You know what I mean? I don't really tick that way, but it is, I mean, when you spend every day together at work, it's pretty easy to make friendships. And then when you go off and you have another job, it's harder to make time because I think that like the outside of work time is already filled with kind of your other things. And so I do think it has to be really intentional. So if you have a connection that is deep and meaningful, I do think it can sustain, but I do like to your point at the beginning, it has to be reciprocal. There has to be both parties wanting to connect and spend time.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to happy hours and you're going over to each other's houses for a Sunday, barbecue or on a golf outing or whatever you're doing, and then the work element goes away, well, why isn't the rest of that still continuing? That
Well,
I don't,
that's a fair question. Yeah, because that's
I
outside of
mean,
work.
yeah, because you're doing stuff outside of work. You're making time outside of that element. I just often, and I've seen it a lot. I mean, I've had 25 jobs in my 60 years, so I made a lot of work friends.
Yeah.
But I have very few close friends that have that same connection after the work. And oftentimes I think, wow, I made a really good friendship there. And you leave the job or they leave the job, and you're like, well, I'm going to stay in touch with that person. And you start reaching out, and suddenly you get crickets back. It's like, what made that connection so much different than just like you and I, we met, at a random event, had a
Yeah.
good conversation, and have that deep connection to where we'll make time for each other no matter what, but it doesn't have to be, we don't get butthurt if it's not every day.
Man, I got a twofer in that deal. I get you and your wife.
You got me and my wife. Yeah. You got one good her and one hanging along with me. But
Nah,
it
nah, nah.
but it's still we didn't like I just wonder why the connections are different
I
and
do
what
wonder about that too. Like, is it, I mean, I wonder sometimes, so like if you leave a job, why did you leave a job? Does that still have a pain point for you? And then anything connected to that leaves you feeling a little bruised and so you just like avoid it altogether. I mean, I'm making things up, right? It depends. But I do think there are instances like that where it's like if you leave a job and it's not a great separation, I could see where anything that reminds you of that. Like I had a job where I left. Well, that was super complicated because I left the job and I got divorced and there were lots of layers to that. But the place shut down and I didn't want to think about that place for quite a while, you know? I was
yeah.
mad.
Oftentimes I'm the one who's left, but I'm also the one who's tried to maintain the connection.
Mm,
So I, and maybe it's just because I try to like most people. I don't say everyone, but most. I try to like most people. And so I want to, maintain that. I'm a connections relationship person anyway by nature. I
Yeah.
mean, when you spend part of your time on the streets and learn street smarts, you kind of gotta be able to connect with people in order to survive. So I've kind of carried that off into the rest of my life, and I try to remain, connected and thoughtful and kind. And I just wonder why sometimes that's just the opposite. And what is it in a person? Like, we meet tons of people every day,
Yeah.
throughout our day. What is it about a person where you just go, yeah, I want to be friends with that one, or you go, "Mm, I'm going to avoid that one at all costs." Like, there's an
Yeah.
intuitive knowing, and like we always talk about, there's frequency and there's energy, right?
Hmm.
And when that energy repels each other for whatever reason, said or unsaid, you don't make that connection. But with some people, like, you and my wife and us, like, there was an instant magnet connection, and it just sticks. And I think it's internal, and I think it's vibrational, and um, it's just kind of hard to pinpoint.
I think it is really hard to pinpoint. And I'm reflecting back on, I mean, because that job that I talked about and the divorce even, I mean, I have great friends from there. I had great friends from there. I have friends from there that I deeply missed, but that it felt like I was supposed to step back because it was like they were his friends first kind of thing, and I think that's all complicated. It could probably be easily solved by a quick conversation and be no big deal. But I'm just like a respect person and kind of feel like, well, it's not my place to step forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But with regard to the frequency and the vibration and like what is that all about and why do some stay connected? I mean, I think our frequencies and our vibrations are changing all the time. I think that's part of it. But I also think like I wonder if like I'm curious, what how do you define a good friend or how do you define a meaningful deep connection? Because I think that's different for everybody.
Yeah, and I think it has to be because that's a personal thing. I mean, for me, if we can have like in-depth, deep, below surface level conversations, and yet in the next instant be silly and like 2-year-olds, that is like a great connection and a great friendship to me, because it's not just serious or just playful. Like, there's that balance of both, you know. And I I look I look at some of these guys who they've been friends since high school, and they get together still 30 years later with the same five guys they hung out with at high school. And I often like envy that, because I traveled around and moved a lot, that I didn't, get that kind
Mm.
of setting. So I look at those guys and I go, wow, you guys still hang out after 40 years of from childhood. Like, that's really cool. And then I see some people, like, you know, who I've known for 40 years, and I realize, wow, that was really one-sided. Like, I was really trying for 40 years to be your friend, and I showed up for you in every way possible. And I realize you never showed up for me, or rarely showed up for me. Like, that's a weird, realization, because you call someone, I mean, if you've known them for 40 years and you've been hanging out throughout that period of time, you're like, oh, they're my friend. And then you look back at the relationship and you go, damn, they really weren't my friend. I was their friend and they were an acquaintance, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's just such an interesting, I don't know, when I think about friendships and relationships and connections and all of that. I mean, I've had some where it's that hindsight thing. It's like you think they're great, and then you do, I guess for me, the way I see it is I do just a smidgy of healing, and then I go, oh, hang on. Like they were totally, I didn't realize it, but they were completely depleting me, or I was completely depleting me when I was with them. Like I changed who I was, which takes a lot of energy to change who you are. And that's
Yeah.
on me. Like I was fitting into boxes where it's like that was never asked of me. I just chose to do that. And then I wonder why I'm exhausted. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, what even sucks worse is when you go, oh, I was depleting them.
That
Like,
too,
oh,
yeah.
crap. I was the issue.
Yeah, you don't want to be an energy vampire. I think that's a beautiful, honest statement. I think it's a beautiful thing when you can see and take accountability of like, oh, I showed up. I get it. I see how I was showing up and why that happened and noted, like, do I want to show up that way? Probably
Yeah.
not.
And I just, through my own healing journey the last few years, that I started when I started working with you, I actually went back to some of those people that I hung out with back in the day. And I thanked some of them for sticking with me throughout my being that way, and I apologized to others for when I was that way. And I
Mm.
found some real healing reciprocity in doing that. Some of them have actually come back to that friendship realm of, now we talk more often. So
That's so cool.
yeah, so I think the self-awareness and you know, but also being vulnerable, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
deep friendships take vulnerability, and I think that's part of it. Not everyone wants to go as deep as you and I tend to go, and they want to stay surface level friends, which is probably why it ends when the thing that draws you together, the work or whatever, is gone. They don't want to go that next level.
Well, and I'm not even sure it's always what they want. I think it's what they have the capacity for. Like some
Yeah.
people to get vulnerable isn't in their wheelhouse currently and maybe never will be. And I don't mean they're never vulnerable. I just mean like I think about how I used to show up. I had a lot of like trust stuff. And I suppose on some level I still do. I'm just more aware of it and mindful about it and choosing how I lean into that or don't. But I just think like there was a chunk of time there where for me to really lean in and have a conversation that I desperately wanted to have, that took something. Like it took a special kind of someone to be on the other side of that conversation for me to actually be brave enough to do it because that didn't feel like a safe space for me, no matter who it was. And I'm not saying they weren't capable of it. I'm saying I wasn't ready to be received in that way.
What do you think compels that trust issue? Like a lot of us have the traumas and the injuries that we mask over and we skate by, and so they kind of bruise our way through life. What do you think, the trust element where you can kind of go, they proved that I can trust them. And it's kind of sad that people have to prove, like, I always
Yeah, I
want to
don't
give
see
them the
it that
benefit of,
way.
I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And then if they break that, then not trust them. I don't like to start off with, oh, you have to prove something for me to trust you. And I get burned occasionally from that. And, my wife reminds me that, hey, you should probably, put a little bit more barrier there at first. And I'm like, I don't want to go through life having everyone have to prove themselves to me. I'd rather trust and then let them show me that I can't than the other way around. But not everyone's like that, and I get that. So, what do you think the trust piece, like what really helps with that?
Yeah, well, first I just want to address the proof thing because I don't see it as I don't think I used to tick that way. I don't think it was a proof thing. I think it was a me trusting myself thing, if I really get honest about it. It wasn't about them, it was about me trusting myself to know what kind of container I was in and what I had the capacity for. Because sometimes and this is going to lead me into answering your question. Sometimes I'm super I want to say vulnerable, but it's different than that. Like sensitive. Like I feel like I don't have skin and any little thing that you say, like if you look at me the wrong way, I'm going to take it personally and it's going to be a problem, right? So like that's a whole different thing. But I think as far as you know, what is the trust thing? I think it's choose your own adventure, pick your wound, right? Is it betrayal? Is it abandonment? Is it neglect? It's like it's been proven to you time and time again, whether it be in your childhood or pick your experience, pick your wound, pick your pain point. If that happens a lot and there is a wound there, it's it's hard to want to go back into that wound. It's like you would rather be behind the walls of protection. I mean, that we've spent our lives building up to make us feel safe and not have to go through that pain again. Like, I don't want to do that bullshit again. I'm over it. No more, And it's like we say we're protecting ourselves, but what we're really doing is we're imprisoning ourselves and putting us in that space of there is no possibility for a deep and meaningful connection if that's how you're showing up with that person, right? And so I'm not saying that it's not available anywhere else, but it takes time to, um, I don't know. I spent a lot of time feeling like I was safer if I just sort of contained.
I my dad was married prior to marrying my mom, and then he married my mom, and then my mom and him divorced probably 9 or 10 years after they were married. And my dad, never, and so he would have been probably in his, I don't know, 40s, maybe early 50s, 40s probably. But then he spent the next 25 or 30 years never getting in another relationship and spending so much time alone. And I asked him one time, Dad, why don't you at least try to meet somebody again and do that? And he's like, nope, I had my two shots and I don't want to ever do that again. So the pain was so deep for him that he never put himself out there to reconnect. And I thought, man, how sad that you go through 25 or 30 years of life never reconnecting again because you got hurt a couple other times prior to that. And how lonely that must be to just never put yourself out there to have a connection of any kind. Like after that, it just became family and very few friends that he had originally.
Did that work for him? Was he happy?
I I mean, exterior you could say he was, but was he? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think everybody has different needs. Like I think about just people I know. They're and I'm just going to go like extroverts and introverts, which maybe isn't fair. But it's just an easy way to talk about it. It's like I have people who literally the pain of being alone is way worse than, being out with many people. And then I have other people that I know that are actually pretty damn happy by themselves. Like they're happier and happiest. And I don't necessarily get the feeling that it's from a wound. It's just more like I don't need anybody else to make me happy. And if I find someone great, but it doesn't matter to me. I find that fascinating because but here's the thing. I don't know that I mean, I don't believe we're meant to do this life alone, but I think how we have deep connections can look a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I don't feel like I don't need anyone to be happy anymore. I'm quite content with myself. Life is a lot more enjoyable that I
Mm.
have my wife, and that I have friends, like you that I can connect with and go do stuff with. I took a 30-day trip around the United States from coast to coast when I was in my mid 20s, and it was beautiful and it was great. And the one thing that I missed the most about that trip is that I had no one there to share it with.
Mm.
You know, I
You
I
know,
I I drive by these beautiful places and I'd go, "Oh, isn't that? Oh, is that?" And there would be no one to say, "Oh, isn't that beautiful?" or "Isn't
to
that
share the
nice?"
experience.
to
Yeah.
share the
It's
experience. So,
it's so funny that you say that because I was just talking with another friend. Actually, it was on another podcast this morning, and they were saying all of their best memories, all of their most cherished times are those memories have another person in them. And
yeah,
I was like, gosh, I haven't really thought about that, but I would say for me that is 100% true. But I don't believe that's necessarily true for everyone.
I don't think it's a requirement, but I do think like I love to do a lot of different things, and I'm willing to go do them by myself.
Yeah.
But do I enjoy them more when there's someone else who enjoys them as much as I do? Sure.
Yeah.
And there's times one of the reasons why I know that I love my wife so much is that we can sit in silence and still be happy.
Hmm.
Like you don't have to fill the dead air space, right? But I'd
Right.
rather go through life sitting in silence and being happy with her than not having her there at all, which would still be the same silence.
Right.
right? You
Yeah, but
know,
that vibration would be missing. That
right? The
frequency
vibration would
wouldn't
be
be in the
missing.
room.
Yeah. So, there is something about being with somebody else while we're going through this life and making those connections. Otherwise, why are we out there trying to do anything? Like, I
Yeah.
think it's about connections, right?
I do think I mean I think I don't think we're meant to do this stuff alone. I think we're meant to do life together and we get to choose when we need our space, when we need connections, who we might lean into, all those things. I feel like for me it was so messy when I was younger. I just I just wanted to be seen, heard, loved, understood. I I tried too hard, And I was never, maybe that's not fair. I was gonna say I was never comfortable in my own skin, but that probably isn't fair. I mean, I wasn't trying to be a jerk or or deplete myself or jerk to myself or jerk to anyone else. And there were definitely times where I showed up in that way. And I just feel like the more I get true and like to like a integrated understanding of who I am and what works in the world for me and doesn't. And I'm willing to stand in that, like I'm standing in that light. You know what I mean? It is what it is. I'm in my frequency and that's just how it rolls. And I don't like hold it back anymore. Well, I shouldn't say never, but I show up in a way that feels aligned and integrated with the capacity that I have in any given moment. That's maybe the most honest way to say it and the accurate. And I find that my friendships are like, I'm so blessed with amazing humans in my life. And, maybe it's fair to say I have so many people in my life that I'm not a great friend to any of them, but I don't believe that's true because it's like, I just think we don't have rules. We have connections. We have boundaries and we respect each other and we love each other and we honor the time and the resources that we have together. And I think that's beautiful, but I think it's hard. I think sometimes we make assumptions about people and assume they have a whole lot of stuff. And on any given day, I might be lonely, And
Yeah,
so might you. So it's like if you're called to reach out, reach out. And if you're not, don't assume they're going to be mad at you.
I wonder if on a subconscious level, because I don't think anyone sets out to go, oh, I need validation. But I think on a subconscious level, maybe these friendships that we seek, whether they're deep or not deep, kind of validate that we're worthy of being around. Like we're somebody who somebody else wants to spend time with. And I think on a subconscious level, maybe some of that validation, um, some of it makes those deeper connections and some of it drives those friendships away because you're trying too hard to be a friend, you know?
Yeah, maybe. Well, and I don't know, the way you said that, I was like, and isn't it a beautiful thing to be in our purpose with another human? You know? Because
I
I feel like the purpose, I don't know, if you're going to just really simplify life, it's like the purpose is to learn how to love yourself so that you can be in service and connect with others. Like that's how it feels just like in a cute little nutshell. It's probably not super 100% accurate, but I feel like it's a good overall vibe.
I think it carries a lot of weight. I don't think we want to I don't think anyone's purpose, well, again, I hate painting with such a broad brush, sorry, but I don't think most of our desire is to be alone and my purpose is to get through life as a loner. Like I think part of our purpose is how we connect and show up with others. And
Yeah, and if I, oh,
then we have someone to serve and someone to give that purpose and share it to or with.
right. I was just going to say, I feel like going back to the extrovert and introvert example, which isn't exactly the words I would use, but the easiest way to describe it. I think even the person who is perfectly content being alone feels really good when they give something to someone or to the world or to like volunteers or give something to someone who has less than they do. There is something about that that makes a human feel good. We feel good when we can help someone.
I think even introverts want to be around people just for
Yes.
a shorter amount of time and what they share with those people.
That's
You
why I
know?
made the distinction. I wasn't
Yeah,
really meaning introverts and extroverts because I know that introverts can do people and it's not about that. It's more about how you recharge. I just was trying to set like, here's the people-y people and here's the not people-y people as far as like
right.
where they get their energy from.
Yeah, and but introverts, like my son is a huge introvert, yet he can talk to anybody.
Yeah.
He just wants to do it on shorter periods of time, and then he wants his downtime to do his thing, you know.
Yeah.
So
Too bad it's hard.
he's a people person who doesn't really like people. He just, yeah, but he's good at it. So, uh, but again, it's the connection with. I think that's why he bought a second cat. He wanted his cat to not be lonely. He,
Yeah.
and he wanted, another thing in the house to take care of, you know. Uh, so I think connection is the key to all of whether it be friendships or relationships or whatever, making that connection. We just want to connect with some person on some level, even if we're introverted.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like I know when you said that connection, I'm like, yeah, connection and kindness. But then my brain went super fast when you were talking about that. I was like, I am present and listening. And also, my brain was like squirreling out into what does kindness mean? Because to me, kindness doesn't mean always being nice. Sometimes kindness is you're going to tell me the bullshit that I need to hear because I need a smack in the face. You know what I mean? I mean, in the gentlest, most loving way. But I just think some of my very best friends are the ones who are willing to go, hey, Michelle. How about, have you ever considered this perspective? You seem a little, which I know we do that in our friendship,
But
and
that's
it's
what
a
I think
beautiful
makes
thing.
for a deep
Yeah.
friendship or a deep relationship is the ability to call each other out on their. I don't want to hang around yet yes people all the time.
Yeah.
My grandparents, one on one side, they were married for over 50 years, and I never saw my grandmother ever challenge my grandfather. And I remember the last time I ever saw them walking out the door in the age of 20, and as I'm leaving, as I said goodbye, knowing that I'd never be back, I said, I never want a woman like that in my life. I never want someone who doesn't challenge me, who is only a yes person. I don't think that that's, I don't think that's good for either party. Like,
No.
if you want a deep friendship, you got to honesty. And if we're being honest, then you have to call me out sometimes when I'm the problem. You know,
Yeah.
my dad had a my dad had a great saying. He used to say, if one person calls you a jackass, no problem. But if multiple people call you a jackass, you might want to buy a saddle. Like
Look
you
into where
have to
that's coming
have
from.
yeah, you have to have some level of like some people are going to call you out, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
you need to buy a saddle.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I think, as we're sitting here talking, I'm thinking about human connection and how important it is. And I'm also reflecting back and understanding how scary it can be. And I just like worth the risk, but mindfully, you know, mindfully and supported, even if you're the one supporting yourself. I just feel like I was so willy-nilly for so long about how I showed up and I didn't really consider myself. And I think maybe the most meaningful connections that have evolved over time for me have been because I considered me first. Like, who am I? How do I want to show up? What do I have to offer here? What am I able to receive here? And I mean, I don't do this like this logically, but like, is it a good fit? I mean, I can do that very quickly in my being, in my intuition, and just in how I drop off, or drop in. But um,
But that's what makes you a good friend because if you don't have that element and if you don't have that capacity and you don't do that, then you just show up how whoever you're in front of wants you to show up. And that's not being a good friend. That's just being a chameleon. You
well, it's
don't,
also not being good to yourself.
right.
Trust me, I tried that for a long time. It was bad.
Yeah. So to do it the healthy way that you said, know you first and be you first, like we're not meant for everybody, but we're meant for somebody. But we can't know that if we're not ourselves first. Like
Yeah. And that's
you,
not to say you have to have everything figured out and all your wounds healed to be a good human or to be a good friend.
most of us never have it. Any,
Right. I mean, good luck. I believe we're always whole and never heal. You want to dive down that rabbit hole, but
yeah. Yeah.
I really do. I believe there's always more to be healed. I truly believe that. I mean, short of enlightenment, and how many people do you know that are actually enlightened? I mean, and if you do know because they told you, then they're not enlightened because enlightened people don't do that. They don't tell you that they are.
Yeah. Don't have to tell you how great I am.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I think it's beautiful that there's always more to be healed. And I think I'm to a place in life where I'm grateful that uh I found some stuff and I worked through some stuff and I healed some stuff so that I can show up and be a good friend and receive a good friendship, and that there can be reciprocity there, and it can be a beautiful thing without all the like rules and process that I used to go through before. It felt like a big old roller coaster and a push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. And it was never easy, even though I wanted it to be or pretended it was. But it just destroyed all my other relationships. It was like you would dive into one or two, and then everybody else would go away. And then it's like, then there would be a fallout, and then you dive into another two, and then they'd go away. It's like, what the hell is going on? Why am I doing this?
And I think it's also easier to give friendship than it is to receive friendship. I think you said a very important thing there. And that's one of the wounds that we need to heal to make a deeper friendship connection is to be able to receive that friendship as well. You know, if we can't receive it, then how are we actually authentically giving it?
I think most people, at least most people that I work with, I'll say it that way. I'd have to think a little bit on to extrapolate it out, but I have a hunch. Most people have a much easier time giving than they do receiving. Really receiving. I'm not talking about like pretend stuff or not. I'm talking about truly giving and truly receiving for, I don't know, even people who think they're quote unquote selfish and takers. They're not. It's just they're not receiving in a way that is in what we're talking about here, like this holistic, loving, kind, compassionate give and receive. That reciprocity is hard. And most people don't know how to receive. I still struggle with receiving sometimes. It's like, oh, don't give me a compliment. I can't just take that and sit with it. I have to say something back or do something or, it's hard.
It's
I know that.
it's interesting because my wife and I were just watching a movie on Netflix, and the lady was bringing her child from Germany to America, and her child was 6 years old, and the customs guy asked the little boy how he was, and the little boy was like, he didn't know what to say, so he didn't say anything. So the mom, after they had, walked away, the mom said, when we're in America, Americans will ask you how you are, and you say fine. And he said, well, what if I'm not fine? She goes, that's okay. Most of them don't want to know how you really are. So you just say fine anyway. And it kind of just struck me with what you were saying there. People, that's part of the not being able to receive. How are you? Fine. Can I help you? No, I got it. I'm good.
Yeah.
Can I do anything for you? No, I'm good. Like we wall off that receiving part, so then the connection stays kind of superficial. It's when
Yeah. And
we,
then we get mad that we have surface level friends.
right, then we get mad that we have
I mean, what the hell? That's what
right.
you're
Why
like
are my
saying. You
friends
did
all
that to
surface level? Because
yourself.
I don't let them in, right?
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
why I think we've circled back and answered my question. Why is it deeper? Because those that we let in become the deeper connection, and those that we keep surface level fade away when the opportunity arises.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have a full-blown map or recipe. I just have my lived experience and this conversation. And I think it's pretty spectacular. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that my trust stuff is much less likely to get in the way these days because it's different. You know what I mean? I can still get a ping of like, "Oop, red alert," but it's different. It's just like awareness and well, let's see because I trust myself to show up and discover and uncover. Not in a way you have to prove it for me, but like let's dance until we can't dance anymore, and that's okay. You step on my foot, that's fine. And also it might not be fine and I get to choose that and that's okay. I think I used to think that I had to be committed forever, like, oh, I can't make somebody feel bad or I can't, well, I was gonna say can't make myself feel bad, but I did that a lot. So I don't know. I just think it's fascinating, but it feels like I'm really glad we had this conversation. Like we started it on the phone the other day and then you were like, we should record this. I'm like, yeah, I feel like we should.
I think we need to be our own friend first before we
Yeah.
can
Oh,
show
yeah.
up to be a friend for someone else. And I say this to my wife all the time because she's very critical of her own self. And I say, if you spoke to others like you speak to yourself, you would never have any friends.
Mm.
You have to be your own friend first so that you can be a deeper, meaningful friend elsewhere.
One of the biggest things we talk about my choose yourself thing. I literally have a section titled uh Love the I in friend, become your own best friend. Like that's where we start. Let's start there and then we'll move out from there. But
And I
beautiful.
think that's how friendships like ours allow this to continue and circle back and make things like this happen. So thank you for being
Yeah.
my friend and my wife's friend.
Thank you both. Soul family is a beautiful thing. I feel like I'm being called to say that if you're a person out there who finds other people maybe risky, or maybe just put some awareness around that and look at yourself and become your own best friend and then see where that takes you. I'm guessing there's at least one human in your world that maybe you have a hunch that might be pretty cool, might be pretty all right. I know that's not true for everyone, but I hope it's true for everyone.
And I hope through this they find the opportunity to at least look inward to at least make themselves their friend.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Yeah, you too.
And I appreciate your bride.
She appreciates you very much.
I feel like that's a wrap for today. You got any last nuggets?
No, I think we've mined this one.
I want to cue the music. Thank you for being a friend.
Right.
Just put is that the Golden Girls theme song? Is
Yes.
that what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
God, I've been Golden Girling myself way too often lately. I just like I think I've embraced the fact that I am older and I'm gonna go with wiser and hope for that.
Being this far down the road, I'm gonna second that motion.
Yeah. All right, that's a wrap for today. Thank you.